Hello everyone. So recently I made a video about a very important subject topic in Jira that you need to really master if you want to become a really good Jira administrator. And that particular topic was basically issue security or configuring or understanding how securities and permissions work in Jira, because that is one of the uh, most crucial important area feature that you need to master. Because if you are if you do this wrong, then it will actually be really embarrassing. You don't really want unwanted people to access top secret issues in Jira or requirements in Jira, or it could be anything. Now, whenever I'm working with Jira configurations, and to be honest, this is not really applicable to just issue securities, but in general, whenever you're doing Jira administration work, you need to make sure that whenever you are, let us say, defining your requirements, and whenever you implement something in your Jira instance, you also test it. And for testing it, you also have to make sure that you test it with the right user. And when I say the right user, I'm talking about not just administrator of the Jira instance, but you should test it how this will behave with, let us say, a developer user access, or maybe project manager, or maybe internal user or external user. So basically in Jira instance, usually you have different users with different levels, different rights. And whenever you're building something, especially around securities and permissions, or maybe if you're doing something with workflows, or if you're writing scripts, you need to make sure that that particular customization, that particular script, or whatever you're building works well for that particular user. So what I normally do, and this is something that I think I mention all the time, but I thought I'll probably just talk about it in a separate video as well. So whenever I start any customization on a new instance, or maybe on an existing Jira instance, I make sure that I have some test users created in Jira. And it is always good to have separate users. I know that you can use, if you have, let us say, script now for Jira on data center version, you can use switch user feature. There is a built-in script, and that is great. But it is in a way cheating, because you are logging in as another user, which is probably not always desirable, especially in big enterprise organizations. It could be even the test instance, but I think having some test users will make it very simple, clear cut, that okay, if you're talking about dev user, then dev user will see this feature, or will this particular not see this issue, or whatever you're trying to build. So it is of course not very complicated, and you can actually do it using internal users. You don't really have to use your LDAP users, your directory users, your external connected directory. So I normally create something like test user 1, test user dev 1, test user dev 2, and external user, for example, or test user PM. And I make sure that these users are part of the right group, or maybe the right project role in that particular project where I'm doing this testing. So if you have these separate users, and by the way, do this also on cloud. And whenever I create these users, I basically keep it very simple and make it easy for me and other administrators, so that they can also troubleshoot. Because when we write new configurations in Jira, or whenever we customize anything, it would be a small script or any feature that we develop, we always promote it to maybe staging environment, or maybe production environment. And we of course have runbooks where we define, or basically, in the runbook you will define, okay, how to implement this particular script or these customizations on the next instance, basically the staging environment, for example, so that people who are responsible for moving these configurations from one environment to another environment, they can just follow the runbook. But at the same time, I also write test cases for them, and those test cases are very simple. Do this and log in with the test user, then log in with test user 2, and again do this, log in with external user and do this. Are they able to see this issue? Are they able to see this feature? Or is this feature working the way it should work? Are they receiving an email or whatever? So basically, when you write these test cases, you're basically ensuring that the feature that you have developed, it has been validated on dev environment, it has been validated on staging environment by someone else with different users, and also keep a trail or keep some audit. So maybe create a simple table where you, or basically in the same list, the same test case, you can define expected output, environment, and whether it worked or not. So again, doing these things is not very complicated as long as you're following some steps. Because if you do these things, then it will of course become your habit, and you will ensure that whenever you're doing any Jira admin work, you will follow, because it will become your it's like a muscle memory that you're building. Okay, if you are trying to, let's say, add some security levels, but if the person is not really part of the security level, or if the person is probably not in a role where that particular role is missing, let's say the set issue security permission set, then it will of course be problematic, because basically when you write these things down, you're actually making it very simple, not for just yourself but also for others to follow, because the environment that you're working in might be different from the other environment. And whenever you write any run books or test cases, make it environment. Don't assume that the other environment is exactly the same, although it should happen that whenever you're promoting your changes from one environment to another environment, then the configurations should match. But I've worked in environments where, or I've worked with companies, organizations where these environments, although they are supposed to be mirrored or cloned, they're not the same always. So don't expect everything to be exactly the same when you promote those changes from dev to production, or dev to staging, or production, whatever. So these things are of course applicable for data center version, but at the same time you can do these things on cloud. On cloud, of course, you can create these example users. There is one issue with cloud. Whenever you create these, because what I do normally, whenever I create some users, these example users, in, let us say, so basically you can always take a backup of your cloud environment. Let us say if I'm doing a demo of advanced roadmaps, right? So I'll set up one Jira premium environment, and then I'll restore my my backup. And usually in my backup I have test users. But if your test users have dummy email addresses, then it can be a problematic, because it won't import. It will give you error. So that is why I have actually actual working email addresses in my so whenever I generate this backup file, I ensure that only the active users are there, or basically the users with actual email ID, so that I can restore. I thought we'll probably share it in case you want to maybe make sure that you're able to spin up a new Jira cloud instance with some actual data. Of course, you need to import your backup file, but it will actually save some time. All right, that is it. That is all I wanted to talk about today. Hopefully, I've given you some ideas, and hopefully this video will help you. So that is all I wanted to talk about today. Thank you very much. Bye bye.